Okay, let's get episode number 15 going. Let's go ahead and double check to make sure everything's going along. Excuse my dog in the background. Wait for things to kick off. Okay. Wait for some people to jump in. Just going to give it a few more moments for people to start coming into the stream. I think it takes a little bit today. Hopefully people show up. 1 second. Okay, looks like it's kind of not happening. Hey, there you go, Adib. How's it going? I was beginning to think. Good. How you doing, Adib? Gonna wait for a few more people to jump in before we get started on this. Hopefully everybody had like a good little break. One second, guys. Amazon delivery just in time for the stream to start. Sorry about that, guys. Although it looks like it's kind of a slow start. We've still got like 9 people, so hopefully everything's connected. Okay. Okay. Just making sure it's kind of like looking like. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there you go, Kishra. Hey, how's it going, Yukatel? Good. Sorry for that, guys. It was a perfect time for it to actually jump in. Okay, that was weird. We went from 50 to Duncan. Let's see. All right. Looks like it jumped. Can you guys type one from like YouTube, one from hey, what's up, Vim? How's it going, Vimal? Awesome to see you. Looks like we're getting some weird jumps. Looks like Twitch finally kicked in. There we go. Everybody should check out Vimal Kirketta's stuff. Phenomenal stuff. Used to be part of the Grim guys, but he does some awesome stuff on Venom and stuff as well. So welcome to episode 15 of ZBrush Live. I'm going to go over top of what we did in episode 14, but before we do, yeah, hey, what's up, Jad? Yeah, I'm just saying it's like in my videos, it's kind of jumping up and down, and so the numbers are a little bit varying on my side. My name is Brett Briley. You can find me on www.bbriley.com if you want to check out my work. I have up my shop in case you guys are interested. I do busts on the side along with some t-shirts and stickers in case you guys are interested. If you want to find out about me, in case it's the first time for you guys to watch, you can find all about me and find me on my YouTube and Facebook and everything else. You can find my work, just general work here on some of the different things I've done over the years. You can find my 2D work if you want to find some of my old illustrations, concepts, and so on, and work I did at Disney and other kind of game companies, and my 3D work kind of corresponding to a lot of the different freelance work and games and stuff I've done, because I pretty much do Disney to death. I'm all over the place. Press, this is where you could also find, I need to update a few of it, but you can find my YouTube videos or kind of interviews that I've done, and you can always contact me through here. Also at my ArtStation at www.artstation.com/spark. I need to update this a little bit more, but again, it's just the general stuff of all my things I've done over the years. I always appreciate you guys. Thank you, Jesus, just to start following me. And also my Instagram, instagram.com/bbriley_art. I need some more love on my followers. I'm not as popular as Vimal and other guys, but no, I appreciate it. I'll be doing some different things. I just updated lately with another print that I'm doing. I've been talking with the Grimm guys, which I'll get to here in a second, about doing some 5-inch heads. So this is, let me see my camera so I can actually see what you guys are seeing. So this is the print off of this one. So we're going to be doing some like 5-inch prints off of some of the stuff. This is off of a readaptation of one of the characters I did for the ZBrush Live, kind of like a, off of the gray. And then this guy I just printed up, again, just working off of some of the different details of ZBrush Live. So I'm going to be doing a lot of the different heads. I'm just going back on the ZBrush Live heads, and I'm going to be working on some of like 1/6 scale heads just for fun. So just wanted to show you guys that, so I'll have that updated here pretty soon. You can also find me along with the two very talented guys, James Kane and Martin Verhoeven, over at Grimm. Together we are Grimm. You can find us at www.wearegrimm.com. Have a lot of our different kits. You can go to our shop where you can find some of the different things. This is the Rise Up kit from Martin Verhoeven, my Aqualian kit, the Lighthouse Keeper from James Kane, and then a couple other ones. We have other things coming. James just did, we just had our production of Bluebeard that's coming, and Martin just did a print on his Instagram and on our Grimm Instagram. So this is the, I'm not too sure what he's calling this guy yet. Names are kind of hard for these guys, but this is the next print that he will be bringing to Grimm. So they will be coming soon. Look forward on our shop. And again, our Instagram is together is www.instagram.com/wearegrimm, and we appreciate the love and the share. And this is, by the way, the Lighthouse Keeper that James had painted, which is beautiful. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started on today's work. We're going to carry on what we did last time, and let me make sure that's showing up pretty well on you guys' chat. Hey, what's up, Peter? I'm reading with James. Yeah, what Vimal said, James is talented. Yeah, he's kidding. Yeah, Martin, they're all more talented than me, Vimal included. But today, had a question, like what are we going to be doing today? I'm going to go over top of the concept sculpt that I did for episode 14, where a lot of people have been asking me to go beyond just like concepting on heads. So we're going to be going ahead and continuing. I actually did, if you guys remember, this is the head I started from off of last episode 14, and then I just went ahead and continued with that sculpt. I actually, let me show you this guy right here. This is the sculpt I ended up with last time from the episode. I actually went through and I kind of took the design a little bit further just to touch upon and break up certain pieces and clean it up for this episode. And this is where I came from. So today's episode, we're going to kind of be going over top of taking this a little bit further. So all I did is I just went through and I cleaned up. I did a lot of this stuff where decimated it together, kind of pretty much boolean it up. And then I went ahead and cleaned up, did a zero mesh, cleaned up, brought up the different parts and separated it up. I actually decided to break up the upper arms and the elbow section a little bit higher, because that was all one piece, if you guys remember, and I just separated up a couple different things like the knee and played with the size just a little bit. So that's all I did to this one to carry our design, because this one episode I'm going to be taking it a little bit further, finalizing the tertiary details, the high-end details in the thought. We're going to take it to PolyPaint, and we're just going to do a pose and kind of try to think of an environment for the character to finish this guy off. Hopefully you guys will get a use out of this for your own project and so on. But again, this is just fun. We're just trying to create the creatures. And what we started from was the hornets. I asked my son what he wanted me to create. So it's going to be based off of, we're going to take some of the color choices from the hornets, and I was thinking about what kind of environment. So I started looking up some of the wasp nests, which led me to kind of more towards some termite mounds and everything else, going along with the thought of this guy is a bee alien section. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can actually find, and we're just going to adapt those designs and kind of see what we can kind of create. So that's what we will be going off of from this. So no further ado, let's go ahead and get started after all that the spiel going on. If you guys have any kind of questions, just let me know. And again, if I just show you, that's the head. I broke it down, and then I'm going to be putting the details on from this. So usually how I start, dynamic perspective is on, but I'm going to change my draw. Usually it's 50 is the default. I'm just going to start to 35. And I work in my Z98 material that I personally find easy to work with. A lot of people have done, like, you know, the different MatCat materials, and what that does is it changes. You have to really pay attention to the foreground, middle ground, and background forms that you're looking for in your designs, especially if we're going to go into the tertiary details. So you want to find a good material that you appreciate. Like, you do not want to sculpt. This might look, ooh, fancy, but let's not sculpt in something that you really can't tell what's going on with your shapes. Now that I have most of my details on, or like my pieces that we were working on last time, I'm going to start just going through and kind of deciding where do I want some of my hard surface areas, where do I want my flesh to kind of come about, because we are taking this guy that he's an insect, so insects have a very shell-cased form, so we want to have some, you know, the alien aspect will be more towards, you know, he's going to be kind of fleshy. So where does that meet from the hard surface and so on? Hey, what's up, Ben? Another talented guy. Thank you very much for joining, man. Thanks. Yeah, this is from last episode, so I was just going into character creation. He is a bee/alien. And again, we, yeah, Deeb, I went through and I did the ZBrush. I pretty much took this character, you know, different pieces of him, merged certain pieces of the head together, that I wanted to have as a piece, dynameshed it, made a duplicate, and just ZBrush it to a lower form to handle, because again, I like to personally have very low levels that I can manipulate if I need to, and go up and down in my details, so I'm not working on the highest level. So I do this because I need to sit there, and when I'm pushing and pulling and thinking, or I'm adding those details, it helps the computer. It helps, you know, you're like, if I want to toss something, you're not dealing millions of polys. But you guys could see these steps through all the episodes I've done before. I just didn't want to go through this whole process and showing you that, you know, the tedious aspect of it. It's already been, you guys already kind of know what I'm doing, and it takes you know, some computing problems. And I've noticed that in certain episodes it kind of drops when I compute and do certain things. So I'm trying to be very aware of what I do for the class. So all I did is just brought these guys together. I have, you know, pretty much everything else. I detailed just a little bit in some of the forms, not much. And I just kind of move the legs down, just a more relaxed pose for us to continue. So, hey, man, thanks, man, I appreciate it. What's the highest poly count you push on a particular subtool? It varies, and the reason I break up a lot of my characters when I'm doing it, it's a good question, Chris. If I had this whole character, which I've seen a lot of people do, is it just even if we're dealing with a skin monster, which this guy is, when he's not wearing any clothes, that's to say, if I took this whole character as one, the poly count would have to be enormous. I might have to kick it to 40, 50 million polys, because I'm dealing, you know, I might want more detail into the face, and so I have to actually spread that detail across the whole character. I like to break up, so right now if you see this piece is actually 5 million for just the head, which is good enough for that detail. If I have to go up, that's going to go up to like 15 mil, but if the detail, usually in the eyes, facial features are a lot more detailed than you would find into the body or certain parts of it. So breaking up those pieces, just like I did for the arm, which I'm going to use for the fact that I could actually, you know, use this to rotate the arm if I need to. I wanted to have a break, but I also did that to have these parts. So as you can see, this part right here is 4 million. If I go to this subtool, it's 3 million. So I'm pretty much breaking them up somewhat consistent to each other, and not taxing over top. Hey, yeah, I probably, yeah. I mean, if you guys, I just want to save you kind of some of the boredom of this as well too. It's kind of like the tedious, how do you get to A to Z? I've shown you guys that over top of the episodes, but you don't need to see it's rinse and repeat. You get past the tech, you kind of know what you need to do, and then you just focus on just doing the art. Tech is the easiest thing for me to show you. Developing your eye and the traditional talent, that's the hardest, and that's never ending, to be quite honest. So a lot of the guys that you appreciate, or girls, whatever, the artists that you actually appreciate, that's years and years of their talent that they're building up, that you're just, the tech is I would rather teach the tech, because people are intimidated by it, but that's the wrong thing to be intimidated by. Hard work and just doing the art is. So, so by dynameshing, as you see, I had those pieces together. This is where I'm just going to start kind of, cleaning up using the blend tool, figuring out what I want to be the hard surface. This guy right here, let me go ahead and take off some of the different parts. Like I might take off that back eye, just so I have some of the feel towards it. And this is where, as you see, my Dynamesh, I realized I had it a little bit lower. That's fine. He's at a higher level now that I can actually start pushing those details. This is where it's going to be a little hard surface. Sorry, that's my dog in the back, and he's deciding to chase his tail. And as you see the pieces that I was pulling back, intermixing, this is where cleaning the mesh up and blending and then resculpting, that's where you take all those kit bash stuff that I usually do together, and then some of the projection, you're right here, I lost some of the projection, that's fine, I'm just going to rework it. These are the things I wanted to show you, that honestly it's, that's part of the deal, and you just come back and clean it up. And usually if you've done the work once, it's really easy to kind of take it further. So we just add some flesh stuff. And this is where, if you're having trouble blending, you just go down on the levels, you blend out, and again, you can go up if you want to blend further. So what this does is, if you have any higher level details in the higher levels, you still can kind of keep and retain some of the detail you put into it while blending it a little bit better. Thank you, Chris, I appreciate it. How to project that to how to project details of a higher polymetal. Okay, so Adib's asking, Amin's asking, so I'll do this really quick, guys, and hopefully it's not, I won't do it at such a high level. So usually what I did is I would take parts. So let's say I wanted to blend, well, I blended a lot of stuff. Okay, so this part's separate right now. So if I show right there in the back head, I have that piece separated. So let's say I want to put this piece into this mesh and blend it. I'm going to go ahead and just grab the two pieces, or whatever I want visible, to merge. I'm going to go down to merge. I'm going to say merge visible. What that is going to do is to take the two subtools and it's going to merge them together. It's going to go down onto the different subdivision levels. So right now on my subdivision levels of this, because I have steps, this is a level 6. This piece right here is a level 6. And actually I should have brought up that detail. So let me do this again. I usually try to divide the subtools to the same level. That way I can actually, if I merge those two pieces together, I can reproject them back down. Because if you look here, this geometry level now is to 3, because it only goes up to the highest level that the lowest subtool will have. So I'm going to lose some detail on here, or I can't break it down too much further. So I'm going to go back again, select these two things. I'm going to merge visible again. And it's going to go through, and as you can see, it's reconstructing. It's going through every single subtool level and breaking it down, merging those two pieces together, recalculating. Hopefully the stream's not dropping. And then it's going to give me a piece here in a second of those two pieces merged together into one subtool with the division levels down. Hopefully you guys are still here. There we go. So this is the new merged piece, and as you can see right here, it is a subdivision level of 6 instead of the subdivision level 3 that the other piece was, because now I have all divisions evenly broken down. They're two separate polygroups still. Excuse me, tongue twister. But they're now able to go down to their subdivision level 1s. As you can see, I still can step through. But what I want to do is I want to actually merge these two pieces together and then create a subtool. So I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate. And I'm going to go down, go to lower res, a few together here. Maybe one more. Delete higher, delete lower. I'm just doing this to just get to the Dynamesh. I'm going to turn off blur, and let's try 2048, because I just want to merge those two pieces together. Let me just say Dynamesh. And so if I subtool, now there's still the poly group. As you can see, I need to probably go higher if I want the detail, but all I'm doing is trying to get a cage. I'm just trying to get the form of the two together, because I'm going to reproject that down. I'm going to go to poly group, and I'm just going to go ahead and just clear the poly group, so I'm not really worried about the divisions. And then let me go ahead and make a duplicate just to show you where I'm coming from. And I'm going to go to subtool, ZBrush, I'm sorry, and I'm going to go down to 1, because I just want to really base form. These ears, let me go ahead and do 3, just because I want some extra detail that's going to grab. I'm going to make sure symmetry is on, and I'm just going to say ZBrush. It's going to calculate. Let's see. Hey Jiro, hypothetically, how would you bend the antenna to achieve more movement if you want? Like, if you wanted those antenna gyros, you could break up each antenna little piece, which I did. I merged them together. You could always kind of use the bend or grab the spider brush, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then that way you can just kind of move. So as you can see, 3. So right now, it's merged in that piece, took that form. I have that detail, so now I have the head combined. So then I can sit there and turn off the solo, and I'm going to pay attention. So on this one right here, if I look on the solo, this is my high poly 7 million polys together. This one right now is 11. What I'm going to do is turn off the dynamic, or the solo, and I'm going to go ahead and just divide it one more time, and I'm going to project. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking those two pieces together, I'm going to project. Sometimes what will happen is that the different poly groups or the non-dynameshed piece that you're pulling from will have some problems and some issues. It seems to be doing it pretty well. I'm going to divide it again, and I'm going to project. And so this is where I'm getting that clean mesh that I want. I'm redistributing all those polygons so that way the details can be consistent pretty much continuously through the mesh. And I'm going to project one more time. I might go up one more. I don't need to really go to the 7 million, I don't think. But we'll see. Hey, Gaurav. X normal map. I've gone over it in a previous one, and I actually showed, I think in episode 13, where I took it to Substance Painter. I don't do Maya, but it's pretty much the same steps. I did a step through doing it, ZBrush, how to create it, how to bring it into Substance, get your maps and whatever. I would stick with those programs a little bit. So unfortunately, I don't even know how to make a damn box in Maya. So each program is a little bit different. So let me go ahead and divide this one more time. As you can see, it's going to be projected 3 million. Hopefully this won't be for you guys to kind of wait, and I'll try to answer a few questions if you want to toss them out during the time. How's it going, pre-drag? And I still haven't figured out where pre-drag works, but he's a video game guy. So hopefully the stream's not dropping. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. This is where, again, all I did in the process for these pieces, I broke them down to the pieces that I wanted. Yeah, it's freezing a little bit. Sorry guys, because it's calculating a lot of this stuff. Hopefully we got less than a minute. And this is where I do a lot of the technical stuff, so you guys don't have to keep watching this whole thing, or just like I have minutes and minutes of just not doing any work. I'm just, this is where I watch TV, guys. This is where I kind of watch what shows, what's going on. I listen to something, or I check my email or my phone, because sometimes I'm trying to clean it up. But once it's so worth it, because when you're working on a really messy Dynameshed mesh and you can't really flow really well in your design, and that's part of it. You need to be able to work fast to create correctly, I think. I mean, you need to have fun with it. And if it's a tedious piece and you're having trouble manipulating things, it's not worth it. And so as you can see right here, if I turn on solo, that's the pieces that went from these two things. Right now I'm at subdivision 5, which is fine, but if you take a look, that's the detail I went from as 2 separate pieces down to 1 piece entirely. So let's see, let's call this new head. Okay, and then what I want to do, go back to the piece that I was working on, the separate. and I'm just going to insert. Insert will bring it right underneath the subtool level that I'm on. A pen will always knock it to the bottom, so I'm going to find my new head, and let's go ahead and rename that and turn off cap locks. I'm not a big fan of not screaming at you guys. So this is the new head combined, and so what I'll do is I'll just bring this to the top. I'll take these two pieces and, you know, I'll hold down shift and the arrow, and I'll just knock them to the bottom, and then that way I can actually just come back up here on this new piece and turn these off, or I'll just delete them out entirely. So I now have these pieces all together, and that's pretty much how I did it for all the different pieces and how you kind of go about that process. So as you can see, it takes a little bit of time, so that's why it's kind of like it's not too fun. But now that I have those pieces together, this is where I can then go back and blend those details together, clean up any kind of issues. That looks like the cast kind of had some issues getting down in there, and then I can just continuously flow. Like if I want to have it here, and it looks, or maybe there's like, you know, that was some of my skin detail from that previous head. I'm just going to clean that up, and let's then connect it to the neck how I want, so on and so on. Okay. So on this one, all I'm going to do, guys, is just flesh out some of those details. And by the way, when I say guys, I'm from Michigan, so it's like, hey, you guys. Sorry, there's no. I know. Just wanted to let you guys know that. Sorry, that's what I talk. Even though I've been in Texas, I don't say y'all. I still don't have that. So when I put in this detail, I'm just looking for those forms that I was talking about. I'm going to detail out some more of what is flesh, what is hard surface, what is carapace, pretty much, to what is going to be flesh, and I want to separate those things. That sounds good. I mean, yeah, definitely if you guys need to share some stuff with me, I'll try to get to everybody's piece. I'm not really great in email, so I apologize sometimes if I'm a little delayed. I get requests, and I've got other things, and I have every intention of saying something, but sometimes it's difficult. I have been talking about getting together some professionals to do like online portfolio reviews, because I know people seem to really appreciate it when ever I'm part of a live portfolio review. So maybe I'll set up something that with a couple of people. Yeah, sorry about that pre-drag. That's why I tend not to do that, guys, and I've done before. So all I'm going to do is take a look. I'm probably going to flesh out more of, you know, this will be the hard surface part of the bee carapace kind of coming down. So I definitely want to bring in some of more bone feel, hard carapace for this. Let's blend this together so we can do some details. Let it save. It's hard not. I mean, it's like I don't, and I say pop. So you know, I still have a tendency to do that. From my son said Coke the other day. I want a Coke, and I was like, oh, I don't have any Cokes, and he's like, no, I meant a Pepsi, and you know, I was like, no, makes no sense to me, guys. Now you're gonna bring in you guys outside of the States and all those different interesting things you guys do. So I'm going to blend these forms. I kind of started on having some veinage go. I'm going to treat this as like this is maybe setting into that section and kind of blend those two together. That way I can have the separation that I started. And let's bring this up here. Now again, usually in my episodes when I've been dealing with the heads, I've been just kind of concentrating on just mostly the front, but because we are doing like more of a full character, you have to bring in that detail, that whatever we did on the front, just make sure you're doing details or flow design that you've kind of figured out to the back. So things will flow to the back on the character. So this one might be, I might have just a little bit more of the hard carapace coming up in this piece. And then so this piece will be kind of, either I separate it off to where this will become more of a extra part of this one, and I stop it there, and then I bring the flesh and brain carapace parts go underneath the carapace, where the fleshy bits go underneath that hard shell that we were trying to carry from the insect. Because again, I'm trying to create something off of one known form, bees, and one unknown form, aliens, where it allows me to kind of, bring in some details and designs from that. So now that I did this one, I might just have it in, because this is where I want the antenna to come from, which is going to be the fleshy bit. So I have a spike here, so let's bring up some detail and spike there. Well, it looks like today's a really low day. Is everybody connected? It's weird, it jumped like 100 less than normal. So, and we've been having problems with Facebook and everything else, so just want to make sure that that's not the cause. Or maybe people are afraid of bees. I personally don't like them. Alright, so once I start fleshing out some of those ideas, again, here's another antenna. So I'm going to kind of use that to wrap my shell around, and this is going to be part of the design as well. I'm trying to lead the eye up and down and around. So once I've added that, then I'm probably going to create some kind of detail to lead your eye up. Or this might be a hard part of the shell where it's kind of spiny off of some of these little spiny specks from that shell. I'm going to use that to emphasize those details, to kind of carry that design that I started from that hornet section. So hopefully that makes sense. You see what I'm doing. And because I'm kind of making this character up, doesn't mean that I have to be, exact. I don't have to sit there and carry, even if I started a design element, doesn't mean I have to stick with that design element. I have to probably, I can bring in another one and then use that one somewhere else. So you can have a couple different design elements on a character if it's getting too busy, or if it's not working, or you just want to bring a third. It's sort of like what I said before. Usually in characters, I try to bring in a couple different elements. Like if I'm going to have a flesh, I need like a bone or a metal or a cloth, or you try to bring in a couple different material hits, designs. So if this guy was just pretty much flesh and insect carapace, then if I want to bring in something else, like he's wearing a metal, or he has some kind of cloth or bone that sticks out of it that's separate from that one, I have to make sure that treatment is visually different and design different to kind of really visually separate it from each other. And I just have a tendency to usually do 3. It's not a 3 minimum. I try to bring in at least 3. When I sculpt the model over and over again, or your works are similar to each other that you cannot differentiate them. I don't know. I have elements of design that or shapes that I personally like, that people kind of say that they see in my work. I don't mean to, but yeah, you kind of, as an artist, you kind of just bring in those elements or things that you like, I guess, that you personally adhere toward. This is stuff I do for fun, so it's sort of like my creatures that I want to bring, but I can do quite a bit of different styles if I need to. But Hey Becker, thank you very much, man. The asking for upper echelon. I mean, the ones I kind of refer to. I mean, there are a lot of different sites you guys can look at, and 3DSK for humans, and but a lot of those sites are pretty. They can get pretty expensive, and if you're just starting out as a an artist, or you don't have a lot of extra funds just to kind of spend, because usually if you're working for a company, you can ask for those, but they're still pretty expensive for a lot of companies that don't want to like spend that money as well. So the great thing is like you can find a lot of this stuff via Google, Bing. Pinterest is a great source that you can kind of look and just build up your library. So that's the best thing you can do. Or if you have friends that might, have a good like a resource, like they have a library of let's say insects. They have tons of like a huge resource of insects that they've collected over the years. Then you share folder to folder. You try to like share with your friends to kind of get. I've done that a lot to where it's like, hey, I spent some time looking on skulls or whatever, and they're like, oh, I've looked on animals or whatever. Then you just kind of go, hey, great, can we just share the resources? You could find it if you take the time. You could find it. So. All right, so I'm just kind of carrying some of that detail and I'm trying to separate. And since I've had that, this is going to be more fleshy, I might actually do some different directional lines to kind of, as you can see, I was bringing up some of these lines from here. This is where I might just kind of, treat it like this is some of the flesh kind of returning back down and kind of separating it to kind of showcase that this is flesh, or this might be a fleshy bit from it rather than a hard carapace. So I want to make sure that I kind of treat those things a little bit different in the way I go about, and this is where I do a lot of, like I might do these kind of squiggly lines to kind of show. I'm going to go down a little bit the levels because I want to bring some of that line but not define it too much, and that way I can kind of erase if need be pretty easily. And then go back up and then finish up those details. Now that I have this as the carapace, I'm going to separate it and make sure I give it a little bit of hard surface hit. Sharpness, those flat lines of your design. And those are the areas of rest as well, guys. That you don't want to sit there and just have busy details everywhere. So if I want to really accentuate that, there's, use the in-flat brush to sit there and kind of give some fat thickness to that. Like the flesh is kind of coming up and around or close to it. I can use the pinch to pull those together just a little bit more, and then use the in-flat brush to kind of go over top of that detail. And then use the trim dynamic to kind of sharpen that area. So, I mean, everybody has like a different way of going about their work. I'm trying to keep it very simple for everybody that's just starting new to kind of go about this and just kind of have some fun. So Amin's asking like what is my external renderer. I've been using Keyshot. I'm not very good at it. I'm still kind of learning. So yeah. Hey, Steven. Steven's another great artist that I met at ZBrush Summit, which you guys should all go to if you have the opportunity. And he actually does some ZBrush Live stuff that he's been doing. So you should check it out. Hopefully he's having fun with that. It's definitely an interesting way to kind of go about trying to think of how to talk and sculpt at the same time. It can get kind of difficult, to be quite honest. So, let's see. Yeah, ArtStation as well. I mean, there's so much that you guys can find that material. It just takes a little bit of effort, but you need to, when you start a resource, when I was looking at bees, I just started looking up some bees. I have that, and then I created a folder in my picture folder, called it insects, and I just added to the insects. And so when you look up a specific type of insect, then you just add it to, you try to categorize as much as possible. So, because if you break them down all as, their individual parts, it'd be very difficult to kind of go through your library. It can get very messy. Trust me, my library's a mess. And once you get years and years of it, it becomes very difficult to kind of, you know, clean it up. You're kind of like, I don't want to clean that up. So I'm just going to add a little bit more neck detail. I don't think I want to make him too much of an old man kind of thing, but I want to bring some of that flesh and lead my eye down to this. And I'm not going to go into hyper detail because I don't think I need to for this character. And also, I don't know if I want to, you know, spend the time showing you guys all the super hyper detail that the character I might spend on. I'd rather kind of show you the PolyPainting stage and some of the posing stage today. Because we can, honestly, once we have that, we can always go back if you need to put in some more detail. And, you know, or maybe even take, you know, I show ZBrush on how to create something for print. I'd rather do that for another episode if you guys be interested in that. So, again, if it's too difficult for me to wipe out, if I don't want to have that detail there, I go down on the different levels to do it. So, hey, what's up, Ryangle? Well, actually, Rye, this is actually, I took it on from the previous episode 14. I'm taking on the character design, so that's why I'm as far as I am. So right now I'm just talking about finalizing some of the design and detailing out some of the work to bring into PolyPaint. So, I wish I moved this fast. I'm not quite there yet. It takes a little bit of time, but to do things. And yeah, streaming is definitely a challenge, to be quite honest. So right now I have the eyes. I kind of made them to where they're the fleshy bit. I was trying to bring in some flesh, but if you kind of take a look, that I have some of that detail that I was putting into the head is now starting to get lost, or it's kind of confusing. So what I might want to do is kind of come to these guys right now that I have that detail going and take away some of that extra line work that I was putting into that, just because I want to sit there and maybe bring into the carapace. And now that I have this little carapace, I might kind of you know, bring in some of that spikes that I have just a little bit from this little section to kind of tie those two in together. Again, a small little element that will actually just help tell what's going on. So this little nub will be a visual hit to a little section. And then I'm also using this to rest the eye because it was getting to me too busy. So and it can still flow into something a little bit soft. I mean, I don't necessarily have to kind of go, this is going to be hard. Or, you know, if I do want to separate, maybe I figure out some kind of design element that, you know, this is the hard section right here, and then there's flesh underneath it. I don't think we need to do that, because you can have the two together, but I might want to, on the side of the eye, separate just a little bit of, that might be a hard carapace, and detail out a few of those things. And then that way the back of the eye could be, I could puff out like it's more of a flesh. So not really defining where it's going to end right here, because I mean it's sort of like this eye is just kind of blending up in. And then when we get to PolyPaint, I just might kind of use that to tip out a color variation to help blend. So if I have yellows and stuff towards the top like a hornet, I might want to blend to the blacks or something else underneath the eye, and this could be a transitional piece. So no worries, right? Yeah, it's I'm trying to bring this up to where I'm going to be like just posing this character on this one for the design. Like if I was going to present, and a lot of times if you are presenting to a client, I do pose and I do kind of showcase what the character might look like in action, because this character is a T-pose, and we usually do this for games, for the animator to rig, but it's very difficult for someone that is looking at it that doesn't have an art background, especially what they're looking at, or you know, what the character might look like in action. So posing is a very good way to kind of, even it can be really rough, just to kind of show what the character might do. You can have a successful character that you really like, and if you don't pose him and he feels very stale, you can lose it very easily because he just doesn't look right. Make some subtle details, flows, and all that kind of thing, and a pose, and all of a sudden he's, you know, he's the one you go with. So I'm going to use the in-flat brush to kind of fatten up some of these skin folds just around here, some of the extra details around the antennas, and again I'm concentrating on bringing down the line, your visual line. So I'm going to kind of flatten this nose but have that line work here, and I'm going to again use this point element as maybe these are the hard shells, so I can separate them from the flesh by also bringing down. So I'm like kind of bringing the points here, and then I definitely think I need to have something to where this might be the hard carapace piece. Again, insect alien, that's all I'm thinking about, and how to show that. So this piece is going to be a hard carapace mouthpiece, so I'm going to separate it a little bit, and then I might bring the flesh up around that piece, because I don't know if I really want to have every single one of these. I might want to bring that flesh, and then I could do that hard carapace section here to the chin, and again, hard, sharp. Flesh is really going to be round, flat, bubbly. Use the in-flat to kind of, you know, accentuate those. And especially if you have some kind of piece that's attached or whatever, you try to bring up something that's going to be around it so it's just not flat on the surface and just looks like it could fall off. I try to make it look like a lot of, and this might be something I just do in my designs, I personally like to have the flesh look like it's holding on to something or whatever. It's kind of like it's not going to jump around or whatever. And so I'm very aware of that across. And once I've started that element, this is where I said I'm trying to bring it into a couple different pieces of the, like here, I see this and I'm trying, I didn't really define it, so I'm going to define this as, this is going to be a hard carapace piece. This looks like a little part of that antenna, even though I might not bring an antenna into it. So here's some of the crow feet that I kind of brought, so I'm going to just make this a little bit difficult. So this is all going to be kind of fleshy, weird bits that I'm just doing. But I might just make this one little piece. Bring this up like a little side carapace piece, just to help. So that way I can, I'm almost pointing that towards the ear, but I'm also kind of going to use it as a visual element, color, when I get to that one, or I can. Again, your initial thoughts when you guys are doing it, just toss it out there, and if it, you know, you can always change it. That's the great thing when you do your own pieces, or you're kind of doing your own style, or what you want, what you like. There is no, this is how you do a bee alien. So wow. Hey guys, it looks like Twitch just came in. Or you guys were being held back, so. What's up, A-Cubed? How's it going? It's like you guys came in like, boom. Was it hanging for you guys, or? We've been having problems with some of the streaming for ZBrush, so I was just trying to. It seems to happen on my side, so I'm sure it's a user error. So once I kind of flesh out these details, I might bring that in. I'm not really liking this cut because, again, it's being too difficult to separate, is that flesh piece or whatever, so I'm going to change the couple angles. See if that works a little bit better, which it does, and I'm going to elongate it. How's it going, gamer? Hey, what's up, A-Cube? Again, another talented artist. within ZBrush. How's it going, Daggers? Cavalry? Hey. How you rated us? Okay, I was gonna say it's like all of a sudden you guys just poured in, so thank you very much for the support and checking it out. So gotcha. No worries. Well, her Twitch is definitely more important, so thank you guys for taking the time to drop in. To catch you guys up, I'm just carrying off of what I was doing from last episode, where a lot of the we were just designing a full character. And so I'm now going through, so this was the character I ended up last time with, let me minus out some things. So what I'm doing now is just going through and just detailing out some of those forms, finalizing my thoughts before I got to PolyPaint and stuff like that. Because a lot of people are asking, how do you, besides heads, how do you carry that design to the rest of the body? So this guy started out as just an alien bug, bee, pretty much, and so I just was merging the two pieces together, and so now I'm just been talking about how I'm going to define the forms down. Now, I have some of these this hard surface carapace on this secondary piece, even though it's a little bit larger. I do have that separated as, let me take off the antennas, it's kind of bothering me, that this is going to be the fleshy part, so I want to take this and just give some visual flat hard surface hues and cuts. So I don't want it to be too round, because again, I want this to be carapace, and then have these different pieces blend in. And just because I might have a certain amount on the head doesn't mean I have to carry that throughout the whole body. Thank you, Ekip Gamer. Insect man, Johnny. It's pretty much the insect alien guy. So let's reduce some of what I was doing on that piece before, now that I'm defining out the different sections. Okay, and as you can see right there, that's going to rest your eyes. There's not a lot of detail, so what it does is when you sit there and reduce some detail work on a certain section, it's going to lead your eye into different sections and where you have your interest that you want to carry. So it's sort of like when you're painting, you're really trying to lead the eye around your character and to see what's going to work. Because if I have a detail that's not kind of working and stuck visually, then it becomes a problem. Now, I had these chest pieces right here. This is my next visual pickup of these solid pieces. And I was kind of doing some bone, or just kind of a breakdown. It doesn't have to be a solid carapace. It could actually have variations like, you know, like actual bone does, where you have some crevices or hits, or, you know, you're going to have like little divots where you actually, maybe he has bugs living in him that are just eating into him. You can actually just carry that on. But I'm going to, this is the fleshy bit that I was bringing over. Let me go ahead and, yeah, I think I like it better where I have that visual design down. So I have the flesh going down, picking back up is the bone. This is bone. Maybe I pick up another carapace piece right here for my design. And I'm just using trim dynamic and my dam standard to kind of help me create those hard surfaces really quickly. So I'm just going flat, turning it, and then I'm going to separate it around. Hey, what's up, Side Effects? How's it going? Yeah, it seems like, well, Ashley just finished up a big raiding party to me, so she's helping. I appreciate it. I wish I could bring as many to you, Ashley, but you don't need it. So when you're doing this, again, this is where I was talking about the character. If I have a design element going on to the front, at some point in time, I need to kind of throw it to the back and bring it to certain parts. Now, I have the arms. This is where I might kind of like say this is going to be more of the hard surface areas that I want to bring to the character. I could still bring in a few of those little notches that I have on top of the head, and that's going to help me separate. And here's, you know, I can use this as another piece to where this is going to be apparatus, because I'm kind of making up like what and how this is going to merge together. This is his elbow. He's got a very short upper arms, and again, this is where I make an alien. I still have an upper arm and a lower arm kind of stuff in a character as a human, but I'm changing the amounts to make it look odd. Hey Heath, yeah, I haven't tried Blender kind of stuff. I'm a Max guy, but again, it's just like you know, don't. Usually when you break things is you go too high. A lot of the stuff I've been showing in the streams, I'm not going into high numbers of details of whatever polygons because I don't need it, and I like to work very low. So like right here, I have this very low, and I'll work on a lot of detail level here and a few different lower levels because that's all I really need, and because this will help me define my form. So because I have this carapace here, and I don't really have any kind of hard surface areas on here, this is where I could just, in a low level, I could just kind of say, okay, this is going to be a hard surface. I might have one towards, you know, the back here. And I can try that out. If I'm always working in this super high level, it's going to just slow down my computer and my design elements sometimes. So, and if I do like that piece, then I can say, okay, I'm going to kind of flesh out this piece a little bit more. I might bring in, I started turning, even though these are kind of turning opposite. And again, on the previous episode, I used this cup thing. I use that element here. So if I have a cup here and a cup here, and I have a reverse here, a reverse cup and a reverse cup, I mean, I'm using that same element, a cup, but I'm just flipping the direction to make it kind of look a little bit different, but I'm still carrying that consistency in a way throughout my design. So I'm going to kind of reverse some of this cup out. I don't necessarily have to be as thick as I was with that one, but I'm going to kind of use that to kind of just give some elements. And I'm going up slowly once I kind of figure that out. And I'm just going to use my trim, my dam standard, to kind of just cut the flesh, and then in flat to kind of thicken the fatness around that piece that I defined. So, because I want to bury it, again, looking like it's kind of, the hard surface is controlled by the flesh, and it won't go anywhere. Okay. And okay. So I think that works. Now this one right here, if I have a couple of fleshy bits, I don't necessarily need to have, you know, a hard piece here and here. I mean, I don't need to cover it. I can just have some elements to that. That's good enough. So it doesn't need to have like armor here on the arms and whatever. If I pick it up from here, you can do little subtle smaller elements that might look like a mole on a skin, whatever. You can just pick up some of those, not for a purpose of defense, just an interesting design. And then again, I might pick up, I'm using those little sharp nubs to kind of, you know, really just touch upon those elements. I don't have those nubs on here, so let's go ahead and just bring up a couple. Okay. Again, because what these do, these let you know visually, without any color, the carapace hits that I have up here that I've carried from the design. So I'm just kind of trying to carry that look down. And I think that's enough. And it might be kind of interesting to do in the back. You know, let's do a couple moles or whatever. Maybe it's smaller. Again, it's sort of just whatever design elements you want to bring to it. There's no rhyme or reason necessarily if it just looks cool. I mean, I think as an artist we're all kind of trying to, I'm looking for those happy accidents, to be quite honest. This is where I'm just kind of playing around with the design and hoping for something interesting to happen. That's why a lot of times if you see in these streams, I just toss crap down. I'm looking for what might work. Not saying anything successful, but the more I try, the better the possibility. So. Okay, do you have a set defined low polygon? No, I mean, Heath, it's, just work within the number. I mean, I usually go down to like, I don't want it to be super low. Like when I projected this head, I went to the lowest polys that actually grab the detail that I need. That's as low as I go. I go to what's needed, and then I kind of go, add the details up. Same thing with high poly detail. I don't go to millions and millions of polys if I don't need it. I have to be very aware of what my working style is and what I actually need. Saying I have 100 million poly character and if it looks like a blob shit, who cares? You know what I mean? You need to kind of realize, like, it's not the poly limit. It's what you can do with it. And actually, in gaming, I actually teach a lot of my students that it's you try to do the most with the least amount, because then that way I can like, let's say if I had I told a story about a student friend of mine that he created a tricycle. It was a beautiful tricycle, but he created 8,500 polys. I actually did it with half the polys and I made it look better. So in reality, I could have 2 tricycles at the same one as one. And that kind of is like, let's say if I do a book and it's 10,000 polys, I can only have a couple books in the room where I can make it 100 polys if it looks just as good, and I can have thousands. So that's the difference between games, movies, all kind of stuff. You kind of have to really think about what you're doing. You have to be aware of the poly counts and stuff like that. Don't just toss it just to, say you want to have that number. So, hey Heath, yeah. Well, I mean, I've been in ZBrush for quite a while, but and I love the program. It's the most powerful program ever used. So, yeah, and I'm just going up and down on the levels on these ones to do it. So, okay, I'm just going to create a little bit more hard surface hits here, and I'm going to probably just use the points, and I'm going to use them to blend. And I don't necessarily want to have this thing as separated. This might be a forearm muscle. I don't know what it is yet. I might want to thicken just a little bit and play with the size. And flesh out a little bit of these pieces. And on the elbows or these kind of joints, you can actually, again, if you look at your own elbow, it's all kind of, you got where it bends. It has any kind of area that has a lot of work that it does for the body will have the most detail, or the rough parts. You know what I mean? You have scratches, you'll have nicks, you'll have, history. So when you're doing a character, you're telling a story. To be quite honest, I would say look for the story. So this guy is kind of, the elbows are usually where you put some of the story. And this is going to be the carapace. I was doing some extra little flow out design here to kind of play with that cup. And then I'm going to kind of say this is going to be the elbow joint, the wrist joint, and I'm just using the fleshy bits to lead your eye around. So he's pretty much, this is going to be the carapace part up here, little section. Okay, and then you could actually probably just say this. I can flesh this out to where that's just the solid section, because I need some more places to rest the eye. I'm going to bring those together. See how that looks? Okay. That looks fine. I'm going to use the move tool to kind of point that out. Okay, and then let's go ahead and separate it. Yeah, there's stuff you can find online to kind of go through, and the best thing I could suggest whenever you're working with a program or you're trying to find tutorials, find the teacher, find the right teacher for you. To be quite honest, that's just as important as learning the proper way to do stuff. Finding the teacher that can explain it to you pretty easily, that you understand it, goes a long way. Because you could find some great artists that their work is phenomenal, but they might not be very good at explaining why they do. I don't know if I do a great job of that either, but it's sort of like, so if I make no sense to you whatsoever how I'm explaining it, which the wife says I make no sense a lot, find another teacher that you can actually, they can tell you the same thing or a different direction, and go with them. So I'm kind of just solidifying that a little bit more in the design, which I think works. Let me play with this shape a little bit better. I'm going to go down a few levels and I'm going to just knock that back down. Not really liking this little separation. Okay. And by going down a little bit lower, I can actually just move shapes, blend them out a little bit compared to what I had. So, and I have this as a hard carapace in the back. So I'm going to hit solo really quickly just to kind of see what's on the inside of the elbow. And I'm going to flatten and blend some of that roughness there because I want to keep it more towards the top. And then there it goes. Less is more, okay. How's it going, Luma? Yes. Oh, pre-drag set on the normal maps and games. There's a lot of tech that goes into those because you're trying to do a lot. You're trying to take millions of polys and make it in as low as you can while doing all that fancy detail. It gets pretty, it's magic, and a lot of things you have to do for it. So, okay, so define this up a little bit more to the back. It's not as necessary. It's there, but it's not my main forms. Yeah, Sculptors is great, and I mean the new one that they brought in. I use it for some things. I still have a tendency to do my old style or just my direction, and I know there's a way that you can actually. I just have to use it a little bit more, but it's a great tool for exploring as well. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit more hard surface. I don't know if I want to sit there and kind of say this is a, because I don't have a lot of hard surface hits or parts, so maybe I might bring in one, a couple of those little mold pieces or whatever into my design. Flush that out. Okay, let's go back. Okay. Let's go back to the back because we got most of that stuff kind of figured out here. I definitely on the back of this I might want to bring in a few of these pieces and details. So kind of did that one part. I like that little fleshy bit underneath. So I'm going to kind of make this my shoulder blade. Okay, and I'm going to use the move tool to probably sharpen this up. And I'm going to carry that element here on this back size. Now, if you're, a good way to do something is like if you have a design element already set on one piece, what I could do is to take this one section right here, just duplicate it, and then let's just move the move tool, flip it around 180 degrees. Oops. 180. Bring it to the back and go, okay, can I bring this into the element down here? Well, I might be able to down in this little section. Pull it in, change the angle, and see how that works. Now, when I did the twist and the pull, let's try that again. Okay. You have to be careful when you got symmetry on, when you're turning something on. Just turn that off when you're dealing with the kind of doing some of these tweaks. You can kind of bend it or screw it up a little bit, or you have to be precise. And turning off your dynamic perspective really helps when you're doing stuff like this, because it can kind of cause some issues. So let me save. Hey Adib, you can actually go back into the ZBrush live section of Pixelogic's YouTube page, and you can actually go through our playlist. Each of the ZBrush artists will have different playlists. You can actually go back and watch every single episode. So, okay, I'm going back down. I have those levels already kind of set. That just helps me because now I'm able to move a lot easier. So I'm going to define this back hip little section that I've already kind of done. So I'm having trouble grabbing that one piece because it's buried. Just go ahead and just turn on solo and pull that out. So that way I can kind of define this one a little bit better. I might want to just have that buried underneath and have this piece come over top. So again, I'm pushing and pulling, trying to figure out what's going to work. And then I can change that piece to the specific area that I want. So I'm going to, on this little section, maybe do one little more. Because I'm changing it from that chest piece and I'm changing it to be more of a back hip piece. And again, anything I do on here, I could always just come back and clean it up. Do another reprojecting, Dynamesh, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And that way, whatever detail I did on the one will carry. And so now I'm starting to carry that design from the front to the back. And then once I have that piece, who's to say you just go duplicate, and then I can say, what would that look like if I have another little section, like this is the tailbone vertebrae thing. Now, just because the vertebrae is up here doesn't mean I have to carry that in the normal place, you know, because usually the tailbone is the ending point. It might be the reverse, or I might just have just some of this history of what's going on there to kind of show some underneath anatomy of the character. Again, I'm making this up as I go. What visually looks good to me. Rhyme or reason, so I'm going to set it, and I'm just going to kind of just bury it. Okay, so once I have that there, let's go back to the piece above and just bring this out a little bit. Okay, do the same thing in this one. And that way I can go into this piece and then finish off that design. Okay, to make this more like, this is his tiny little, this is his ass, guys. That's where his hips are going to lie. This might be a carapace, and then in this little section, this is where, you know, the leg part goes. So I'm just going to fatten that up a little bit. Hiding the parts kind of really helps define up that area. And then, again, I'm going to do some of that flow that I had. Okay. Let's now define, bury, hard surface, a couple of high parts. You might have a speckly insect, but there we go. Again, I don't know. That looks wrong. Okay. Let's see. Hey, what's up, engine? Yeah, no, ZBrush interface. I'm only using 20% of what I'm doing in ZBrush. I'm not going all over. And that's the thing. If you try to learn everything from a program and you use none of it, it's sort of like learning a language that you never talk. It's worthless. So, I mean, if you are going to learn a new language, you practice it every day. So the same thing with ZBrush. I'm practicing everything that I use in my workflow, and I try to stick with that. So I'm not going to learn things that I'll never use. Because if I don't have that in my workflow, then I'm just going to forget it down the line. So it's just kind of a waste of time. And by the way, my mom always explained things to me 3 times as a kid, so I have that really bad habit. So I apologize. I have a tendency to do that. Okay, so I'm going to, this is just his pelvic regions, going to his, I'm going to make a male-ish, not really defined. But I do know that I want this to be a little bit more of the fleshy bits. And then now that I'm coming back up here, I'm just going to work some of that shell flesh section up here. So I think I was Let's define this up as this piece. I'm upside down right now, guys, which is what you want to do a lot of times with your work. You know, always rotate, always look at your work, just try different perspectives. Okay, let's make this a hard palette. Okay. Okay. So now I'm back on here to the front. And the reason I'm jumping around is because I'm kind of unifying the design. A lot of times you want to kind of flow around everything, and that helps you it's sort of like doing layers. It's sort of like, instead of just painting and finishing up one section of a wall, you kind of paint the whole wall with, you know, like the primer, and then you come back and you do your paint and you do the secondary paint. I'm trying to jump around to make sure that that design is just kind of building off at the same level, which is a little bit different from which is what I do in the face, but I usually try to finish the head first and then use that as the design element for everything else. So, hey, what's up, Walu? How's it going, Shibhan? So now that I've done that, let's go ahead and define some more of, oops, make sure this has symmetry on there. Let's define some of this section here. I'm probably going to use flesh to flesh. I'm going to try to bury some of that together. It just makes sense to have those pieces together. But if I want this guy to make it look like he's going to be able to walk, I need to make sure those sections, like, you're not going to have something that's really looks really painful. They're going to come together. You want to make it even though I never know, I'm never going to probably animate this guy, you want to make sure as designing it can animate, or it can move, or it has reason for, you know, the design. So what I'm doing is I'm going to give a little bit of hard pieces to separate. And this leg section I just did as a more fleshy bit. So this is where I might kind of say I need to have a little bit of hard surface, but not much. And I might do that as this little section piece. Let's go back in solo. Take a look at the legs. I was just kind of doing buttocks, but let's go ahead and just do a hard surface piece. Again, to tie in design. It's not like his ass needs protection kind of thing, but you... okay. And I think I might have the legs and such be a little bit more of where the flesh rests. Okay. And then this might be the tailbone section that hides the flesh a little bit. So okay. Let's do a little bit of that variation of dig, and I'm going to reduce the ebb and flow of that shape, because the hard surface I want it to be a little bit more sharp and precise. I can have the flesh be a little bit more towards wavy flow, and I probably want to have this just be a little bit more towards the sharp design to lead your eye. Okay. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Okay. So by bringing in like this element, oops, sorry guys. By bringing in this element here, see how that echoes into the design, and that's just going to kind of lead to it. I don't need that into the elbows. I have it reversed here on the back shoulders. Okay, that I was doing in that piece. Then I have it flipped, reverse, and then on this piece I don't need to sit there and do like maybe I give them a little bit more of that cup. We could try it. I don't know. Does that work? See, see what it looks like, and then just kind of go, yay, does that work? Does that not? And then just, you could always just undo. I kind of like it. So again, I'm reversing that cup. I'm using that design element throughout. I'm tying in a little bit of different, thoughts to it. But it doesn't mean, every single time you try it doesn't mean it's going to be successful. We'll see. Sorry, guys. I think I'm coming down with the cold. Hey, what's up, Armando? Another student friend of mine. Still need to do one more individual class with you. Thanks for joining, man. Sorry, I almost missed you. It's I started getting into the design. Drop me a line when you get a chance, Armando. Let's see. Side effects. What should the density be for approximately body parts? Again, they don't have to be all consistent. It's also the different based on their size or amount of detail that I'm going to put into it. So if you're going to put a lot of detail in one part, that of course will have to have a lot more polys to actually deal with that. If you have it broken up pretty well. So I mean, I have them pretty consistent right now, but it doesn't mean that I have to. When you get to PolyPainting, they just have to be defined enough that you can actually see. You don't see a visual difference. So I usually go higher if I'm going to be PolyPainting the character. Let me go ahead and save this. My cookie, just in case of kind of any accidents, and see the time, see where we're at. Okay, hour and a half sculpting this so far. Let me go ahead and I'm going to rush this really quickly to get to PolyPainting because I got to go pick up the little one today. I mean, unless you guys want me to just kind of continue with this and then next episode I won't be able to do next Friday. I'm going to be going to a wedding. I'd much rather do this, but I have to. Family and such, but I mean, if we want to take it for the Christmas break kind of stuff, then I could just carry this guy on or just start something new. So let's see. I'm not gonna make it such a big cup, but I'm gonna kind of take that design because I don't have too much super sharp stuff. So let's change that flow. Okay. I'm going to treat this like the flesh is kind of coming out. Let's give it a little bit some muscle, flesh variations, and all right. Hey Jeff, I have taught at Art Institute of Dallas, TAD, UArtsy, Game Art Institutes, all kind of stuff. But I've been doing more one-on-one classes with certain people that drop me a line that they're curious. But I'm a pretty harsh teacher because I want to make sure you guys are good, that you can survive out there. I don't believe in setting students out without wings to fly. And I have been talking about doing more of a class for those that are interested, to go over top of that and the portfolios and everything else. So I was getting a list of previous students. I kind of faltered off on that, so of what they thought of my teaching rather than me just telling you. I'm a little bit biased for myself. I'm gonna say it. I'm a very good teacher, but I don't believe that it should ever come from don't believe me. You believe the students and see if it works. And of course, again, it's It's very important you find someone that actually, you know, you can understand, not just based on their work. Okay, so I'm just bringing in a few little elements into that, not much. I might do one more just to kind of let's see. Okay, so I think he's pretty good on. Yeah, actually, Armando is a previous student. You can always just ping him through here, and that's what you guys should do, especially through when you come across people that are seeing your Twitch streams or live or anything else that you kind of respect. You're watching those people, then you can always find somebody that has the similar interests. It's always good to connect with them because connections are part of it. I mean, honestly, as an artist, you have to be good, but it's also your connections. It's networking is key, to be quite honest. I think it's almost just as important as your ability and your personality. So, and then one way to do that is to meet other people that have the same interests. And you get to know them, and then you go on, and then, you know, I have a lot of friends that work in a lot of cool industries and companies and stuff like that, and that I can drop a line to if I actually need to, and they can do the same for me. But those friendships started from, you know, general interest in art. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with most of the rest of the design. Looking at the character, I don't want to sit there and just have it all be, you know, just think of it like a bee. So if we look at the bee, let's just find it. So as you can see right here on, you know, this is the hard part. He's got the section. This is a carapace, but then back to his ass. That's where it becomes, I mean, it's hard, but it's kind of softens up. He has a lot of the underbelly. You know, this is mostly just one big shell. His head's a big shell, and then he just kind of, that's where his guts are. Honeybee, that kind of stuff. So if we're going along with that thought, and plus I need to jump on a polypainting kind of stuff, I'll sit there and say, okay, that's what this is for. And then he's kind of, this is the harder part, kind of, this is his main chest area is really harsh, or has hard elements. Let me, before I do that, before I speak too soon, I might just bring this, let me duplicate this one more time. And again, it's work I've already done. So let's see if I can use this just a little bit to bring in a little bit more of that harsh, hard element to it. See how that works. Go down a few levels, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use that as a visual eye. I don't know if this is too much of a repetitive hit, so let me go ahead and turn that off, and let me go and flip it 180 degrees. And bury it. And I'm playing with shapes, and I'm just looking for like what's going to work. You know, oops, turn back on symmetry. I turned it off. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking to see if I need to have a little bit harder shell on the back. And I might use this piece to kind of adapt just a little bit, but I'm going to change it. So let's go back up. I'm going to use it as like kind of the back of his ribs section here. But not exactly what I was using before, so let me see. Make sure, if you're dynameshing and you have holes, what you do is you just use the in-flat brush and you just kind of like go like that, and then dynamesh again and clean up. And what it's doing is like it's it's having trouble. So you try to collapse that hole, okay, to where it kind of tells Dynamesh. Also, the different levels that you do, make sure you go down. If you're getting something where you go up too high when you're trying to Dynamesh and there's some issues, it's kind of blows up on you. I don't know if you guys have seen that. You just have to go down lower. I use that to kind of just reset my, to clean up, you know, the Dynamesh, and I use the piece to, just like I did with the head at the earlier part of the video, to kind of just, you know, then I reproject that information. So I'm not really concerned about having the perfect Dynamesh. I just make sure it's a closed form, and then I Z-remesh it to sit there and make sure it works, and then I'll go from that. So, okay, I'm gonna bring this in. So I'm trying to do some fleshy bits. I'll use this as part. It's kind of like the reverse of this. So now that I got that in there, I'm going to bring up these shoulder blades a little bit more. I'm intermixing with the flesh, so I'm kit bashing this stuff together like I usually do, guys. And then let me go ahead and just play with this, pushing and pulling, changing direction. Okay. And I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to underlay it. I'm going to bring it up. And I'm going to kind of use the pinch to pull these together and blend out just a little bit. Because I want this piece to kind of come under. This is just, it's sort of like a back ribbing. I'm using this as one big, I don't know if you guys can kind of see it, like this is his chest cavity, but I'm flipping it around. And let me just solo this piece. And I did that just to kind of blend into the section. Okay. There we go. So now that I have that kind of thought process out, so I got kind of like this fleshy bit thing going up. I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to bring this, I'm using the move tool to push that underneath and build the flesh or the detail level that I want to push and say which is more important. So those shoulder blades that I was trying to bring out, I'm just going to kind of Alright. I think that works a little bit better. Can use the in-flat brush to kind of and I'm going to connect those pieces, kind of blend it. All right. I think he's good. Thanks, Armando. Yeah, you did a good job. And I forgot that yeah, he got a job at Microsoft because he took the class. He busted his butt. So that's the key thing. And no matter how good the teacher is, if you have a student who doesn't want to be a student, there's no hope. I've had plenty of students kind of like, it's your job to teach me, and I'm like, no, it's your job to learn. So, and art is not an easy thing, to be quite honest. Oops. All right. And let's make this just a little bit of a hard shell. And I'm just going to kind of, again, separate the flesh to the hard surface, and then I can kind of, you know, add some extra fleshy skin folds to kind of blend that in. Let's go ahead and hide that, because I want to kind of, again, you need to sometimes turn on the solo so you can actually get into those areas and stuff. So If I have something that's blocking my direction, then you need to change it. Okay. I think he's good to go. So let's go ahead and start PolyPainting. How's it going, James? Is it Jamie Johnson? Old Jamie Johnson? Let's bring him back. Some friend of mine I grew up with. If that is. Let me see. Yeah, Armando should share it. I mean, you guys should actually share your links if you guys got it. Just check out, like I said, connect. That's a big part of this thing. Networking. Okay, so I have the character. He's pretty much good to go. I'm going to start with the top. Again, I'm going to go back to the head. And just kind of quickly go through it. I think, yeah, I think we'll do one more class on finishing this guy up. That way it's not kind of rushed, because the PolyPaint is going to take its own set of time. So let's go ahead and just start with it. Let me see. Yeah, and on the class, I just had them do. A lot of people want to think that they have to do unique things. Like if somebody else has already done a grenade, so don't do a grenade, and or don't do a violin because somebody's done a violin. Well, there's very little things, original things in art anymore nowadays. It's just how well taking it from something realistic to doing it exactly to make it look like that is the biggest thing to do, to be quite honest. And it's very difficult. So, hey David, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff Atkinson. Always be saving. Yeah, I'm saving here a little bit. So now that I have that, so let's just deal with this guy solo. Some people ask me about, again, I showed where you can actually just go and grab a photograph. So I'm going to go into my, just like I've shown you with alphas and stuff. I'm not going through a lot of details in alpha. I'm kind of skipping over to PolyPainting. I should probably do the alphas really quick, but I'm just going to show, just like I've done this before in a previous class, but I'm going to just show taking your textures, coming down and turning on your spotlight. You can actually bring in your character with the spotlight. When you're doing this, I usually do like the standard. This is a little bit different than the normal way when I've been doing the PolyPainting. I'm just going to show this really quickly because I'm going to use this picture to grab colors from. I'm going to turn off Z-Add. I'm going to turn on RGB, and I'm going to bring in the face a little bit. I'm not trying to do an exact B. I'm trying to grab certain colors that I can use, and this is what's great from photographs, tossing into PolyPaint. In here within your ZBrush, your spotlight wheel, I'm going to go over to the opacity. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit, and then this is the scale, so I can actually scale it up. You can rotate if you want, and I'm going to kind of just look for a general placement, just character, the placement of the colors and stuff. So I'm going to turn on paint and I'm going to turn off Z. Using the standard brush, I'm just going to kind of paint this on real quickly. It's at 100%, and again, I'm not concerned. So when I turn that off, you're kind of like, oh, that looks like, holy crap. I'm trying to get the colors. So as you can see right there, I have a pretty good range of what this yellow jacket's going to be looking like. I'm going to pick kind of a dark color from this one, and I'm going to go back to what I normally do for PolyPainting, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to turn the RGB down, color. I'm just going to fill that object just a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm blending out. You could also do this one where you mask out the area you want to keep. Okay, and then I could do color, fill object to kind of get in a closer range while still having some of that detail be into it if you want. I'm just using this for quick coloration. So now that I have that, I'm going to go to my darks. I'm going to start blending those guys in. So this allows me to pull from the colors of the yellow jacket or hornet, whatever I want to kind of do, and then I can start pulling those out, the colors out, and be very aware of, like, you know, colors I want to use, how I want to blend them. And that way it ties in pretty closely to, you know, so I'm using this as sort of like a color wheel. Like if I had a bunch of splotches of color or on a palette, I can actually pull from those colors. That's what I'm doing. I'm just tossing a photograph onto the character as my palette wheel, as a color. So it just allows me to kind of dip into like, oh, I want a little bit of dark, you know, I want to go to the black. Instead of coming back to here as my color wheel, I'm using this as a color. Okay. So, and then what I'll be doing is using the head as my color wheel to pull for the rest of the body, once I get this kind of going in the direction that I want. And again, I'm moving pretty, I'm going to slop it down really quickly, and I could always get my PolyPaint, and then I could always reverse and go back into my sculpting. It's never ending. You can jump back and forth and see what's working. So if I need to sculpt in more detail, or if I need to come in and put more pour details or something that I've done in previous episodes, I'm just going to probably reverse because I want to get some polypainting going in the direction. So I'm going to darken some of the ears. Yeah, Ghost, I've saved, but I'll save again. Yeah, honestly, if you find the right teacher that you like and you understand them, you work well together, it's very important because they could kind of teach you the pitfalls. I'm not telling you what I've done wrong. I'm trying to tell you what I think is I'm doing right, and then that way you kind of avoid those pitfalls. It's sort of it's sort of like if somebody goes, hey, you want to come over for a party, and they just hand you a picture. You know what I mean? It's great. I know what your house looks like, but I don't know how the hell to get there. So having a great teacher will tell you the directions to get to that house, to get to that end. That's very key. And so I'm not going to tell you of all my mistakes I've made. I've made a lot. You know what I mean? That's the difference between vets or pros and stuff like that. It's just the amount of accidents or mistakes you've made and learning from them. So I'm trying to do, like, just like I teach my son. I was like, this is how you do it, and you don't like, you know, fire's bad, don't touch. You know what I mean? I'm not going to just let you touch fire and figure it out for yourself. I don't do that for my son. You know, I was like, that's going to burn you. So I try to do that as a teacher. So I'm bringing in some of those dark details. I'm blending in. Now I know that the carapace colors, I'm going to go to a lighter. I'm trying to get some of those tonals in. And the flesh right now might be darker. The flesh might be lighter. I don't know. I'm just bringing in my darks first, and I'm going to build on top of them. So, but I want to have this probably be a little bit more warm on my carapace. And you could, you know, at this point, as I'm building up stage, I can actually bring in the body and start doing this to the whole thing and just kind of go in swatches. Hopefully I can remember. But again, I could go back to the original color and pull from that. As long as I do that, then that should help me pretty easily. So I'm bringing in some of that yellow because I'm testing out as well. I'm seeing what's going to work, and I can flip back and forth. So he's almost kind of like Bumblebee, Transformer kind of stuff, because Bumblebee's based off of a bumblebee. So those colors. But I don't want to be, this is exactly going to be a hornet. So at some point in time, I'm going to start playing with colors. I might find a color that's not usual to bring in. A lot of people think aliens, they think blue, they think green. So that might be where that flesh tone kind of comes in, is separated. But I want to make sure there's a blend between the two, because I blended in my sculpt, in my concept, in my design, the two together. I made a bee alien, whatever. So yeah, if you do the fill object and stuff like that, if you can see my RGB intensity, then that is actually just, if I want 100%, it's 100% of that object, or that color. If I like to work in about a 40-50 range, I'm doing half. That way it's blending, and I'm also using an alpha with a breakup. I'm not doing a solid color because I want to blend. I'm constantly blending those colors together. So as you can see this spotch of that work. If I went to 100%, I'm going to get 100% of this color. I don't want that. I want to kind of break those together. Okay. I'm going to keep that a little bit. So on here, I need to bring in wherever I had that shell element. That's where these colors are going to start going. So I'm going to go dark right now on the skin, where I want the skin to be. And then I'm going to start bringing that yellow and start to differentiate the two pieces together. Okay, I like this golden yellow. So let me start bringing that in there. What would it take you to get me as a mentor? I'm already your mentor. I'm mentoring you guys right now. So I'm planning to do a class, guys, and I'm trying to get the other guys from Grimm. I want to do this as a partnership with those guys, to where we take on a group of students, 15 to 20, and then we have a different section. That way, you know, like James can teach towards, you know, miniatures, or we can have discussions. I mean, I do more of the teaching stuff than they do. James is worried about the fact that, you know, he doesn't like to teach, or he might not be very good at it. He is, so I'm planning to try to put something like that together, because one-on-one is great, but the problem is I can help so many more people, and I don't have that much time. And I believe when I teach students together, they learn from each other. So a lot of times when I teach larger classes, you or another student might be doing a project. I bring in that project and I show you how I would go about it. I make you guys suffer. I make you guys do the project. It's sort of like when your parents, at least my parents did. I used to walk up, you know, to school in snow, 3 feet of snow both ways. You know what I mean? That's like they went through the thing, and so I want you guys to do that, to where you suffer with the project, you learn, and then I take the project or the object or whatever you're working on, and then I kind of go through it and say, this is how I would go about it. So you can actually see the mistakes. And honestly, sometimes I actually go down the rabbit hole trying to figure out what students have done. So a lot of times I just go, it's better just to scratch, start over, and this is how I'd approach it. But the one thing I do notice is that students typically do similar mistakes, and then that allows me to kind of go, you know, you can learn from me, but you also learn from other people's mistakes or what other people are doing. And I found that to be a good way to kind of approach stuff, instead of just parroting. Like if I said, you guys just make a can, if I make a creature and I say, you guys echo and make the next creature, well, when you go to the next creature, it's very difficult for people to kind of grow out of that box, because you're set into a box. I'm saying do exactly like this. So that way when you do realistic props, you're sort of in that box, but you kind of, you get through the tech and you build on the possibility. It's very important. That's to realize that the tech is very intimidating, but it's not the major part. It's the developing your eye, and then that's where a lot of my teaching comes into. Is the eye. I've tried it. I've done it. This is where you can kind of, you know, learn from. Like, hey, this is how I'd go about it. I see the mistakes you're making. That's the biggest part. Because honestly, I've taught you a lot of the tech. It's already done. All you have to do is just do exactly what I'm doing. A couple brushes. That's the tech. And then it's the eye. Then it's looking at the flow, the development, you know, what might work, what might not. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm looking for some of this color now, and I'm going to now make jumps, and I'm using the color palette of this one to highlight certain parts to bring out. So like I want this to be the nose or the flesh, and so now I'm just separating by breaking up the color. Oops, might go a little bit darker. For that carapace. And then so what this does is it starts to slowly develop more to the character. And if it's not working, like if this is too much, if this separation isn't working, like I forgot, let me grab this color. I wanted like this to be the carapace piece. You know, how far does this go by bringing out the flesh? You know, that's where you kind of go, okay, is that working? So now let me bring in, grab this. That's going to be a carapace piece. This is what pre-dry was talking about. I'm filling the object. If you notice, the first time I filled it, it just kind of like went to a 39. So now I'm pretty much just going, I'm hitting it a couple times to fill it to 100. So I'm slowly building up that level. So I'm going to use this as, I have to go to flesh out. And I should probably go, I'll go a little bit darker. I'm going to blend in. I'm going to save. Fire bad, yes. No, I mean it's hard work. I mean it does take a bit. I mean I usually I have a pretty high success rate with students that I've taught, but I also have a high success rate of failing students that don't do the work. It's very key that you have to, it takes a lot of hours, you know what I mean, and I can't do it for you. And that's the reason I started teaching is because I saw a lot of crap come into our industry, needless to say, to where I was like, well, I want to be able to help, but I also want to make sure that our industry is not going to suffer by those that are not doing the work. How I started teaching is that I was downtown Dallas at there used to be an advertising firm that used to have rooftop parties and stuff, and I was drinking and I was listening, and some of the people were talking really bad about a local school, about the quality of the students coming out weren't good at all. They would never hire them, which I thought was kind of, well, that sucks. That's kind of crap. So I started talking, and thankfully I had a connection, and a friend of mine taught a different department, and so I said, set up a demonstration. I'll come in and I'll demo, and then did my demonstration, and then had portfolio reviews afterwards, and that's where I was like, had like a long line. There was like 20 something people in the line, and this one guy comes up and he drops down some anime on line paper, and I was like, oh, you're just starting? He was like, no, I graduate in three months. And I said, oh, hell no, you don't. Anybody with anime on line paper in my line, get the hell out of my line, as a joke, because I was shocked, and 4 people left. And then that's where I said, okay, I'm going to teach. So that's how I started teaching, to be quite honest, because I was shocked, that students were paying that a lot of money for that school, and that's pretty much what they were still doing. There were certain things, because it's not just necessarily your art, it's also your portfolio and your presentation, your networking, so that's pretty much how I started teaching. I care, but I also want to make sure that the work is good coming into our industries. And the only way to get that is hard work. Lots of it. Yeah, side effects. I'll take a look at it again, and just keep hitting me, guys, if you want. I'll try to get to it. I have a couple projects going on, a couple things, and so sometimes I'll be able to quickly hit emails and stuff, and I try my best to answer everybody. So now what I'm doing is I'm still keeping a lot of this. I'm not, because I want to use this as the colors. So I'm kind of still figuring out. Like right now, this is really dark. So I am probably going to bring in some of this color just for now into my skin tones, just to kind of blend in. And because this is all flesh, I might have to sit there and say, okay, I need to pop a color, and this is where I might kind of go, okay, that's where I need to have some kind of armor element. I'm going to go down to this piece. I'm just going to fill this in really quickly, and I'm going to start bringing in some color. Okay. Looks like it's not. There we go. And this is all the armor piece section. So I'm just kind of tying in some of the color breakdown. And this is the only way to kind of do it, is just to slowly keep building up, going back and forth. I'm going to darken down some of the skin to pop out those little sections. And I'm also using it to kind of blur or blend for right now. And you see the skin pop all to different color. If I know I'm going to start with a skin tone fairly dark, let's go ahead and I'm going to change my color really quickly, and I'm just going to say color fill object. So what that does is when I switch, you don't see it popping on them all the time. So let me just fill these in, because most of it is skin, more of it's skin than anything else. Okay. All right. So now when you look, you can see the colors when it changes. So I'm going to just pick that color again, click to that object, in case you're like, what piece do I need to fill in? So you see it pop up. Picking that color, that skin, that base color. And then I think it was this one right here. Okay. So most of it's done now. So now when I flip around, what that does is it makes it uniform, so now I can start paying attention to where the colors are going to start popping. Well, I know in this piece right here, I have some of these colors going. So let's just start blending it all together just to see if the design is working. So this is going to be, that's part of the, okay. And then seeing how odd that looks, let's go to the armor real quick. Let's bring in some color here. So that's going to be an armor piece, or a carapace piece, however you want to say. There's going to be one there. A little bit of blend here, maybe there. Let's go to the back. And I'm debating, do I want to make this part of the armor? You know what I mean? We could actually put it into it, or what we could do is just make it to where it's kind of blending into the skin. It's probably, you know, armor flesh. Yes. Let's get these in. Now, this piece right here, I could have waited and painted up this sucker first and then used it as a design element. You could still do that and kind of like, I can finish this out really beautifully and then use it again and do the same thing, but I pushed and pulled the design to where I wanted. It's just probably quicker for me to kind of add a little bit of paint to it, and then that way that adds a little bit of variation. So it doesn't have to be the exact same piece. It takes a second. I'm doing this pretty quickly to kind of get some color into it. I'm jumping subtools right now as well. And then this way, this just allows me to kind of slowly build up. Now, if this is going to be the like I said, carapace or more of it, this might be too much yellow. And it could just be the fact that once it kind of goes down, or this piece, let's see, it could just be a lighter blend of those colors together. We need to decide, you know, when you're putting that color in there, is it too much of the pop? And again, I kind of grabbed a little bit too much, so I'm just grabbing some colors there. And I could do where I start out here and then I can just go to dark to blend, because I do want that color to carry through some of the design. Maybe on the knee I might bring up a couple here, or I'm putting in color just to see if I need some. And this could also be like just the skin at some point in time. And then these are kind of a little bit part of the carapace, and that's like a hoof-esque. Okay. I didn't have symmetry on. So if you don't have symmetry on, just go ahead and just undo it. Because right now I don't want to have, oops. Slightly consistent. And of course the hoofs are usually towards the dark, so let's just grab a dark. And blend that out. Yeah, the art ways. I mean, it's not about the brush. It's not about the tool. I'm going off of what Pre-Drag is saying. It's about, you know, you as the artist and how you utilize that. I mean, I've seen artists that use a damn palette knife and do beautiful paintings that look like it's been brushed and like the fine. I mean, it's just, it's how you as the artist kind of are able to use that tool. Because there is no one way. Like this, you use this tool, whichever, it's a pencil, you can be an artist. That's not true, because there's plenty of people who could pick this up and draw a stick figure to the Mona Lisa. So just be aware of that, and it doesn't come easy. So okay, I'm not too sure with the color, and this is where I might kind of try to figure out, now that I'm kind of stuck on the color. Like I've got some of the pieces. Let's look around for any more. Oops, I forgot in here. So let's bring in some of this color here. Like I don't want to, let's go back to here, and I had some on the hip section. So what this allows me to do is to kind of figure out, again, what will bleed your eye around, like lead your eye, bleed. Some people use both. Let's go back to here, and let's just kind of bring this up just a little bit. And I don't know, on here I might put one here. So you can add color and say what's going to work, because it's like, do I need color there in that back piece? And if I do, then I just bring back the design. Oh, I definitely have some of this color in the back of the head. So let's bring in that. Okay. The carapace kind of ending there. Okay, so let me blend in this color a little bit. And the stinger, you know, that could be the yellow color or the gold color, I mean, whatever you want. So, okay. Now that I have this colored down, where are we at in time? Okay, I'm going to go just for a little bit more, guys, and we'll just pick this up next episode. I think the thing is finding the next color that's going to blend this guy together, because it just, right now, by having that brown, he's kind of a muddy alien. I need to bring a little bit more of that alien to it. There are different tones and colors that we can bring. We can even probably take a look. So let's start back with the head. I'm still going to keep that brown, but I'm going to look for a color that I think might... let's start with like the teal grays. I'm going to go down on my intensity. I've been working with 100. I shouldn't have. So I'm gonna try to sit there and see if I can blend a few colors and see how that kind of looks. Okay, that might be a little bit too teal. And so I'm going to use it around parts that I've already kind of decided that is going to be around the eye. I mean, I've got a lot more of the separation on the pieces right here, so this is an area that I want to choose. You know, what I want to go to a purple. Will purple work? So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find that right color that I think would work. That is going to visually kind of blend well with those browns. So, and by doing the kind of the blue, purple kind of stuff, maybe that might be kind of like a translucency with that brown underneath. Having some of the yellow. And seeing where that kind of goes. Okay. I kind of like that, so let's just roll with it just for a second and define a little bit more of that flesh tone. Now, having that in there, I can actually just still have some of that golden part of this flesh, and I can start to kind of slowly bring it mixed in with those browns and those yellows. Just because I said this is now going to be a certain flesh tone doesn't mean I have to carry that flesh. The flesh can change. I mean, I don't want to make him like a rainbow guy, but I mean, I want to kind of start intermixing some of that flesh tone with the browns, because that brown is going to blend in the two colors. So make them attached. You want to have that consistency of color as well as sculpt and form. You want to have it within your colors. So okay. I think that's kind of working. I don't know, what do you guys think? Glad you're liking Jeff, and hopefully you came back from it. Hey, Midnight, I'm not teaching like in Dallas anymore. I was. I taught for a little bit. I taught over SMU as well. I forgot about that one. But you could just contact me and drop me a line. And the online courses, Armando, who was in here before, he gave his portfolio link you could find. He took, I've done one-on-one sessions with him and stuff like that. And then you can, I'd rather have you guys contact some of the students I've had if you're interested in me helping you out, just to see how well. I'd rather have you hear it from them than me. But I'm planning to try to get something together where I teach more than one student, like I said, so they can blend off each other. Plus, it's a little bit easier when you're kind of not spending, like if I taught 5 students 3 hours each, that's 15 hours out of my week rather than just teaching, 5 students 3 hours one day, once per week, that they can help each other out and kind of learn from each other. Works out a lot better. Alright, so I'm just going to start bringing this flesh. I'm going to keep a lot of the darks underneath. So, yeah, I think this blue is kind of working with the mixture. And I still can bring in different color. And I'm going to kind of just pay attention to where that flesh tone might be. So, like he might have a little bit darker. Let's bring up his lips a little bit. And once I kind of, like if there's a color, I'm like, oh, I like that one, I'm just going to go ahead and just use the C key to kind of just start to grab that color and move it around a little bit, probably in the crevices, or blend it. If I really like that color, I'm just going to hit the C and kind of blend that back out, because I want to knock down some of this extra teal that I had in the beginning, maybe grab a little bit dark purple. So this is where, again, I'm using, just like I used that photograph, I'm using my colors as a palette, the character itself, and anything I kind of liked as a palette. That's the great thing about doing the PolyPaint, is that you can just kind of grab any kind of that section of colors and just kind of move them around. So right here, like this is just kind of getting to be a lot of the flesh tone. So I might want to kind of, it almost kind of looks like he has a mustache. So this is where I might kind of go, okay, well maybe I make this whole little section kind of a harder piece, or just blend those two together to say it's not quite a full carapace piece, not quite flesh, it's kind of the mix between the two of them. So, and that's where I'll start figuring out what's, what's working, what's not. Let me bring up my intensity just a little bit more so I don't have to dab as much on my hand. Okay. All right. And as you can see, now that I've got that color, I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of doing some quick swatches to lighten up that, especially the chest area here. And I forgot to do the arms. Let's see. Because I might need to sit there and say, okay, I have to kind of get some. So this might be a carapace piece, because I'm having trouble. I've made it kind of flesh. But the thing is, I think it looks like he's kind of not protected as much, and I need to kind of bring that down. I might even do some, use this color to say, well, maybe I need to kind of lead that eye down with the color, so he might kind of have like a little bit of carapace piece right here as well. And this is where I said you're going to kind of, on your character design, when you're coloring, just because you have something set up on your sculpt and you think it's working fine in your sculpt, once you get color on there, that changes the character just as much as a sculpt would, and you have to kind of adapt with it and look for it. So that's what I'm looking for right now, trying to find pieces that are combined. Like, do I like this big of a gap? Is this enough? Do I want more of those warts or anything else? Or on the back here, do I want to sit there and make this whole head, a carapace piece, and I go to a solid and I just have the flesh to where he has, and it kind of transitions down, and then this little, now that I've got some of this color for the flesh, then that becomes more of the blue underneath, you know, and then these are like little sections of the flesh hiding underneath, and that transitions. I think that might work a little bit better. So then if I do that, then I need to kind of go back into my sculpt, and then I might kind of bring in some more of that hard edge pieces, and then I'll take this section out, and then, so let me go ahead and turn on. So again, when you blend, in case you guys didn't know, just turn off the RGB if I just want to play with the sculpt. And so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of, oops, don't want the color. So now I'm sculpting, taking out a few of those details. Let's go down a few levels after it saves. Just say, you know, I want that to be more of a hard shell, so taking out some of that visual differences on my sculpt, going down a few levels to smooth out a little bit. So now I can still have some of that design. Kick back over to RGB, and then I could just now make that a little bit more of a carapace, which I think is working a little bit better. I have a few aspects here. I might have to kind of say, you know, well, maybe there's just, this is all carapace. You just see a few little fleshy bits that stick in and out. You know, is this a fleshy bit? Or does it look better just to have it like one solid piece and design it? Okay. This little section right here. Now that I got most of my colors from the photograph, and again, you could always just pop that color back on, pop that photograph back on if it's if you need to grab those colors again. Okay. So I think that works a little bit better. Now let's go ahead and this blue, purple blue, I'm going to go up a little bit lighter to get some highlights on it. Because I probably will play along the lines that it's going to be kind of like a gray alien. Cat the witch. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, if you're drawing, do not draw on line paper. I mean, it's just kind of, it's sort of just like saying you don't really care about your artwork, you know what I mean? And that's something I did in 5th grade. It was just something, it caught me off guard, you know what I mean? And I made a joke out of it, but then, you know, when he said I was about to graduate, then I was like shocked to hell that he was about to spend all that money and graduate and not get a job. So that's where I was like, you know, that's where I kicked into my teaching mode. How long does it take ICD to texture one full character? Are you talking for games? If you're working on a 4K map, depends. Substance Painter helps a lot, but it could take a couple days to texture a 4K map. You know, depends on the level of detail, stylization to realization, realistic, I should say. That varies. That's the detail. I mean, there's so many things when you're, and it's very subjective. When somebody goes, "How long would a character take?" Well, it depends solely on what kind of character you want. You know what I mean? The concept and then how many, you know, if I say, it's funny when I do freelance sometimes, if somebody has a free reign of how many critiques or tweaks they can add to a character, it can go on forever if you're not quite hitting what they want. I don't even know what my wife wants some of the time, so I'm sure as hell sometimes not going to be able to tell what a client wants. So within the contract, you kind of say, if I'm going to concept something for you, you have up to 8 concept hits that I'll do, and then on the 8th concept, it's going to be $100 per hit concept, and it's amazing how the concept comes together on number 7. You know, so because they don't want to pay for their little tweaks and stuff like that. And if you do things for free, people who want things for free are more nitpicky and are pains in the asses than people that are paying you, because they can get it free from you. So to certain things you find. Okay, on this one right here, I'm going to color in and oops, if you notice right there when it comes through, I don't know if a lot of people know this, within brush there's something called auto masking, and if you come down there's something called backface mask. Turn that on so that way when you are sculpting, painting, or whatever, it will just only paint whatever you're going to be pulling from. Okay, so like let's say if I want to just get some of this color form, I'm going to turn off I'm going to paint higher density. So let's say if I want to paint this to where that's the separation, you can actually do the pull and it won't paint or sculpt mostly. Sometimes it grabs it, but it just depends on your angle. And that way I can kind of go in the back there. And that way I can bring in some of that color. So let's do it to this one as well. Okay. All right, so we're starting to get some color onto this object. Okay. Yeah, drop Armando a line. Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on what level, it seriously depends on what the level of detail you're looking for. So, I mean, make sure it just looks good. That's all. You're happy with it and you're not kind of, you know, rushing something to get done. Okay, so I'm going to start bringing in, I've gone off, I'm going to bring down my intensity. I'm going to start painting in some of those highlights, start separating. Because I've got to jump out of here in a minute. So I've taken off my pull box and I'm just now painting straight on. I still have my alpha on and I'm just going to bring in some of those colored hits and the highlights in the areas. And this is just a start. Again, you can go back and flip and I'm just trying to find some of those details that I want to bring out. Probably want to have those lips a little bit darker and have the flesh around it a little highlighted. Definitely want to accentuate the mouth part to pull out. Have a couple of holes into it. And I'm having trouble, like I want to go smaller, but I'm stuck at a certain level, so this guy's just too small. So I probably have to kind of make them all a little bit larger. So let's say if I'm in trouble where I can't get down to a certain point, okay, or if it's too big where you can't, like your draw size isn't grabbing, I'm going to show this real quick trick, and then I'll call the class done for today, or this episode done. What you could do is, just like we're going to go into and save. Let's save first. Very important. Number 2. Hey, Richard Lyons. This guy's a badass. You need to check out his work. This is the same Richard Lyons that I'm a big fan of. This is my my bug alien guy. Oh, and actually I forgot to color my antenna. So I'm going to probably pick something kind of dark color fill object quite a few times. And then I would definitely bring in, you know, I'm going to probably adjust some of my colors or pick on highlights in certain areas to help separate and define those antennas down a little bit. Let's pick a little bit higher color. So as you can see real quickly, I can get, you know, some definition and interest by doing a quick PolyPaint hit to that. Doesn't take much. Okay, and let's darken up those tips a little bit. Okay. I'm getting a lot of that color. But someone asked me a question, how do I, because right now these pieces are all kind of connected. If I really want to make those antennas be able to kind of do spirals or whatever, I would just separate them as like different individual elements to themselves. It can be all the same subtool, but they're all different. So okay, as I was saying, hey, glad you're back. What's going on, Daniel? Sorry, guys, I've been missing this stuff. So Jared was just asking me about the antenna. So that's what I would do, Jared, because right now, if I look on the antenna, they're all one solid piece. So if I want to I mean, I still could kind of take this and go down and down to our lower level and bend. Okay, I could do that, or I could actually just go to here, which this is the snake brush right here. I mean, this could really kind of push and pull, and you can do a few things, but it deforms. So if I really wanted to make those an antenna to be able to do a lot of different things, I would separate each one of these as a separate little antenna piece that I did originally. I combined them when I was doing it, but that way you can actually then do quite a bit to it, and you can just rinse and repeat and make it as long as you want, and you can just keep it on the same subtool. Okay, so what's my train of thought? What I was going to do? Oh, size. So right now he might be a little bit too small. I saved. I'm just going to go to Z plugin. I'm going to go down to transpose master. I'm going to T-pose the mesh. It's going to take in everything within my whole file, and it's going to go down as long as I have those subdivision levels down. If you have something that's super high, this is going to be kind of pretty taxing. So all I did is, and it's saving again, which is fine. So it's taking every single piece that is visible, okay? I mean, and that I wanted to show, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit move. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off symmetry, make sure I'm in the middle of the form. And I can either do this where I just scale up, okay? Or I can come down to deformation right here, and I can just say size up. Let's do double, okay? And let's go one more time. Okay, and that way you can check out your draw size. If you turn this off, you can check your draw size. So now you see if I go down to 1, I have a lot more defining points. I still have a good range to where, like, you think if you need a little bit more, you can actually go back down in your size. And I'm going to go to Z plugin, back down to transpose master and T-pose mesh, and hopefully everything will kind of go through, scale up each individual part, and throw it out. Sometimes you might have issues. This is where it's very important to save. Sometimes if there's something corrupted within a subtool, you'll have one collapse or crash on you. But this is how you can actually get it up and down for scale. And then whatever parts you bring in new, you can just say unify. So now if you see my dynamic, if I go down, so back on the face, if I want to go back into painting, pick and C. Someone asks a question, what's the color to pick? I can then go in and I can have a super defined line that I wasn't quite getting before in my painting. If I want to do, especially for those of you who are really good at painting, then to define it out a lot better. So I'm actually having to go up a little bit because I went too small. So that's how you kind of quickly adjust. Don't feel like you have to be stuck with certain size. That's how you kind of quickly do it. And then you kind of save, and then you save the next one. So, hey George Young, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you showing up. You're welcome, ICD. You can also map the color picking action to a key. Well, color picking for me, I think his default is C. But yes, you can make. Hell, I don't even know how to do it. The reason you can actually configure your hotkeys right here. You can go into it and configure all the different stuff to what you want. You can make. I've seen people that make the ZBrush window look totally alien to, which is for them is great. But when I'm teaching, I keep everything to default so you guys aren't lost. ZBrush is hard enough to. There's so much stuff in it. It's hard enough to keep track of me doing a whole bunch of different things. So, all right. So I'm just going to do a few more things, and I'm going to call it done for today. Because I gotta get going. Let me see. Is there anything else I need to think of? So let me go ahead and pick up this color. I'm gonna go back. I'm just gonna paint in some highlights a little bit to my. Because what the highlights are going to do is going to start separating pieces again, for just like I was trying to accentuate in the sculpt. I want to start picking your eye and leading it around on certain things that I will kind of, again, blend, see what's working, and I'm popping out certain things to help my design. I'm not quite still liking, maybe I do something where I take this color, and I make it more solid. So if I do this one by color, I can decide, do I want to do that? Or if I need to go a little bit more solid to help, from the jawline. This is where you start going in your color will help your sculpt. I'm not too sure about that. That's something I might have to play with for like the next class. Or do I do a carapace, which I think works a little bit better because it's leading to your eye, and then I could use this piece section down here. That might work a little bit, and then I'll figure out something in my sculpt to where I separate out this piece a little bit more, this piece a little bit more. Hell, let's just go ahead and just, I'm kicking back over to my sculpt, just adding in those details, flattening out certain pieces, going back over to my color, and then changing my color. Grab the wrong one. So there you go. I think that might work, and then I might need to bring this in a little bit more for my jawline when I did that to make it a little bit harder. Okay. I think this works pretty well for today. Let me go back and let me double check anybody's kind of questions. So remember, if you want to have something where you don't have the subtool dim, or if you want to make it darker, go to Edit, Inactive Subtool Dimming. If you want it darker between the two elements, between a subtool that is active to not active, you can knock that really down. Or if you want to sit there and make it to where you're blending to see how things are a little bit more unified, that's what you do. So, and then all these should be high already. Yeah, they should be high. And then let me just go ahead and what I'm doing now, guys, is I'm actually just doing a quick snapshot, which is Shift F, Shift S, excuse me. And then I'm holding down Shift and I'm selecting your icon to get all my colors back. I really didn't do much. I've added detail, but I feel like I haven't done too much today. But this way, this will be a snapshot for this. If you want to actually export any of your snapshots out, or your renders, in case you guys don't know, you can go to Document and you can export out this document. Also, if you need to double the size, if it's not the definition, you can just go ahead and just say double, or you can change your size within here. And you could also change your background color by clicking on whatever color you want, going to your document, hitting back, and then turning off your range to make it one solid color or gradation, just for a quick, for those who are curious. So yeah, it's an ICD. Yeah, by going up and down to the transpose, it doesn't screw up your subtool. It's just a quick way. And we're going to be using the subtool master, the transpose master, to actually pose this character, and we'll define out his. We'll finish up his PolyPaint next class episode, and then we'll go ahead and start building his environment and flesh that out, and then pose for some concept ideas. Complete full screen, hotkey tab. Talking about that one. Tab will actually be the hotkey again. I realize some of you guys want to try it to be experts. Don't just have it there. This is a big enough window, or buy a bigger monitor. I still don't go in expert mode, to be quite honest. And what that does is just, it's great if you just want to, I guess, if you're just going to sculpt, you want to do it, but you're always going to be tapping back and forth, and so it changes your flow. So thank you, Predrag, I appreciate it. Yeah, you can, it's like if you want to just select one item, subtool, you can select that subtool and scale it. That's just the normal gizmo and everything else. But if you want to talk about like just scaling up everything because your draw sizes are too large, too small, that was why I showed that one. Yeah, that showing like the way you're talking about, bringing it and rinse and repeating. If you have 50 subtools, that's a little bit difficult. But I understand what you're talking about. There are so many different ways in ZBrush. There's like 4 different ways to everything. That's why it's just like I don't understand how some of the guys at ZBrush keep it all in their head, or other people that I've seen, they're like, okay, that's just it's pretty good. Yeah, and ICD is just like you said, 24 subtools that combines it all into one transpose. And then I use that a lot too. Like if we're going to use this guy to like, let's say if I want to sit there and scale, I can transpose all those guys together, mask out by polygroup or by object, and then make that twice as large really quickly. I can pose it and play with it at the same time. That helps you do that. So yeah. Now, if you see right here, like a lot of this definition, this is bothering me right now. Standard, adding all those, like let's say if I was going to, because I didn't add any of that detail work that's going to capture some of the PolyPaint. I'm feeling like it's really missing a lot of it. So, like let's say if I went in here and I've added some of my alphas of my, let's turn off, I want to go Z add only. Missing all that skin detail work, that's missing a lot. So I was finishing out more of the design, but I need to kind of go back and start adding some of that variation of skin detail, which will help separate from that hard flat carapace, because right now to me he's feeling very just the design, I'm just going off pure design, but the visual is just, he's all flat. He should really have some variation of skin folds, everything else, to kind of really start helping that. So next class I'll go over that as well. So alright guys, I think let me see, 10 solutions, yeah, to everything else. I put in 2 hours a day for human anatomy. How long would it take me to be good fast? A lot longer than it would if you took 8 to 10. So honestly, I've had people ask me that. Artists put in the hours. I work 12 to 16 hour days, 7 days a week. So whenever I'm finishing any kind of work for my day to day, I always jump into my own stuff, and I'm jumping all around, learning new techniques, and just sculpting up different things, or printing guys like this, off of the ZBrush heads. And anatomy is the biggest bitch in the world to do properly. I mean, it's because we all kind of know what it looks like, and it's, like I said, I've had people, I could sculpt out a cat right now, but it's going to be one ugly cat unless I'm looking at that reference and studying it, or if I've done tons of cats. So 2 hours for nothing, not even for fun, you know what I mean? If you're going to do something for fun, do it for longer than 2. So, but yeah, a lot of hours. And if you guys are working, I've had a lot of people like, well, I work a crappy job, and I have, well, you work that crap job, you use that fire to work, the 8 hours that you put in that crappy job for something you want to do. I've seen a lot of people where they're doing 2 hours of artwork, but then 12 hours of, goofing around, playing games, doing whatever. So I always say put aside something that you want to, if art's what you want to do, that's more important than any kind of game. And there's plenty of games that, I would like to play too, but I rarely really touch games. So, but hope this episode helped you guys. Sorry I didn't get as far into it. We fleshed out the design a little bit more of this guy. Doing a good design and a character does take time. So I'll flesh this guy out next episode and finish out to the thing. It will be happening December 14th, so there's going to be a break, guys, just due to that family thing I have to do.